Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Shane Beamer, South Carolina, kicking off SEC play, playing host to a very dangerous Vanderbilt football team. I want to get into what needs to happen for South Carolina to get the job done Saturday night. And we're going to get nitty gritty. We're going to talk about some personnel matchups that I think favor South Carolina. We're going to talk about the strengths and the weaknesses of Vanderbilt. Look, none of that X's and O's talk matters if South Carolina does not come out and execute meaningfully better on the offensive side of the football. And when you're evaluating what we've seen from the South Carolina offense, look, you can point the finger a lot of different parts. And I think you can start with Mike Shula just seemingly not dialing up the plays to give this South Carolina offense some rhythm because we saw it for a drive. And that first drive against Virginia Tech week one, the first drive of the season. You talk about an offense that had some rhythm, that was winning on first and second down, converting on third down. That's exactly what we saw. We have not seen that kind of rhythm at all since that first drive. Mike Shula's got to do a better job. Ain't no question mark about that. The offensive line. We've talked about it all off season long. We know this offensive line can be a solid unit because we've seen it from a bunch of these guys. They've been quite poor the first 2 weeks of the season. Running the football in this game is going to be important. And this offensive line needs to play better. And look, I don't think you can expunge LaNorris Sellers. And I know the circumstances around LaNorris haven't been great. Jittery in the pocket, not getting the ball out quickly. There are things for LaNorris to clean up going into this game as well. Like we're about to get into some matchups that favor South Carolina, some things that I would like to see them attack in this football game. Again, the execution of this offense, that's what matters most. And we know they can do it. The biggest storyline for a lot of South Carolina fans, when you take a positive look at it, is this defense is meaningfully better than what many of us expected. And you look at what they're doing on special teams and how far the defense is starting and say, well, gosh darn it, if this offense can get back to the version of the offense that we saw late in 2024, this is going to be a hard team to beat for anybody in the country. But we got to get that version of that offense going. And this is a nice opportunity at home against a Vanderbilt team that you have the ability to beat to go get some rhythm. Fired up to get into this one. Before we do, and as always, South Carolina fans, appreciate you guys. Man, it's been so fun talking this team, and it's been frustrating the last couple of weeks. Cannot thank you guys enough for rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. I want to start with just some basic matchups that I think will favor South Carolina here. LaNorris Sellers and his legs. And I get there's a fine line to walk in terms of keeping LaNorris healthy and letting him go be the best athlete on the football field. I don't think we've walked that line good enough, especially with some of the run game struggles. Hey, when we're struggling in the run game, why not activate one of the best athletes that we see in all of college football in LaNorris Sellers? That's where it starts. You go back to Vanderbilt against Virginia Tech last week, and Kyron Jones had a lot of successful design quarterback runs. And I'm looking at this South Carolina offense, and I'm looking at them averaging, 3.6 yards per carry? So you want the run game to get some life? Well, you got a weapon back there. LaNorris Sellers is not only the best quarterback in terms of running the football in the country, we're talking about one of the best pure ball carriers, one of the most dynamic ball carriers in the country, regardless of position, when this kid has the football in his hands. The fact that we're not letting him get involved the way I think he should be involved, especially, I mean, it'd be different. Like if we were just running some base run stuff and having a ton of success and you don't need to get LaNorris Sellers involved, I would understand. But the fact that we're not running the football well and we're not giving LaNorris Sellers enough opportunities to be a designed quarterback runner, to me, that's a problem. And you're going into that Vanderbilt game, watching the film from Vanderbilt last week and seeing them get burned by Kyron Jones a couple of times and say, you got to get LaNorris Sellers' legs involved. Number two, I want to go to the defensive side of the football real quick. And this kind of gets into the conversation, all right, what's Vanderbilt trying to do? They go and run the football, right? There's zero question mark about that. Does Diego Pavia terrify you as a pure thrower of the football from the pocket? No, probably not. Does Vanderbilt have pass catchers that really scare you? outside of tight end Eli Stowers, I'm not sure if they do. And then I'm looking at South Carolina secondary, especially if all of these guys are back healthy, and say, we love that matchup. And we know Vanderbilt's going to try to run the football. If I am Clayton White here, and I'll give Clayton White a hell of a lot smarter than I am. But if I'm Clayton White, I'm saying, hey, we're going to walk DQ Smith into the box and have another body to support a run game that's really dynamic and can run the football a lot of different ways. We're going to make Diego Pavia beat us from the pocket, and we're going to trust our cornerbacks to win some one-on-one stuff on the outside. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. And I think with a healthy defensive backroom that South Carolina is supposed to have Saturday night against some Vanderbilt wide receivers and a quarterback that I'm not sure if they scare you a ton, I think that's the matchup you're trying to lean into. Say, we're going to take away the run, and we're going to trust one of the best secondaries in this conference to deal with the Vanderbilt passing attack that we think we can win against. Last one, linebackers. This really, really big. I cannot tell you how impressed I've been with these South Carolina linebackers to start 2025. And gosh darn it, are they going to be important in this football game? Now, Vanderbilt's going to give you a lot of eye candy, and they're going to run the football in a lot of different ways, whether it's read options, design quarterback runs, jet sweeps. They going to throw the kitchen sink at you in the run game. These linebackers flying around the football field, going sideline to sideline, they're going to be asked to run, chase, and tackle on the perimeter. Well, we got the horses, we got the dogs to do that. I think that should make a lot of South Carolina fans feel really good about this game. We think our linebackers can deal with this Vanderbilt rushing attack. Here's the caveat is they're still young. Fred Johnson's a young guy. Sean Murphy's not super young, but he's inexperienced. Justin O's a young guy, year 2 guy. Got to be disciplined with the eyes. Because, again, Vanderbilt's going to try to give you a lot of different looks, a lot of different eye candy. We got to make sure we're disciplined with our eyes. And if we're doing that, trust these linebackers to have a really, really big influence in terms of Vanderbilt trying to run the football. Those are the matchups that I believe favor South Carolina. And those are the matchups that I think South Carolina needs to win if they want to win this football game. How about key stats? And I'll give you one that I think might be the most important in this football game. That is negative plays, specifically when we're talking about this South Carolina defense versus Vanderbilt offense that's been elite staying out of negative plays. Now, why is this stat so important? Really for a couple of different reasons. Number one, Vanderbilt is an offense that wants to stay on schedule. And they've done an exceptional job doing it, right? They've only given up 1 sack and 4 TFLs throughout 2 games of the season. In result of not taking a lot of negative plays, they're also 11 of 16 on their third down attempts. That is a 69% conversion rate. That's got to be one of the highest in the country. If you want that trend to stop, you got to create some negative plays. You got to get them off schedule. If they're living in 2nd and 6 and 3rd and 3, they're going to be moving the chains because they have the whole playbook open. But if you can create a negative play, Dylan Stewart, Brian Thomas, Gabriel Brownlaw-Dindy, I think has been very impactful in terms of penetration. If you can get them in some 2nd and 12s and some 3rd and 8s, all of a sudden that really dynamic rushing attack playbook kind of gets a little bit smaller. That playbook in general gets a little bit smaller when you're sitting in those 3rd and 8 situations. All of a sudden, they're not converting as many 3rd downs as they have been the first 2 games. It's going to be huge. It was really big for South Carolina in this matchup last year. Going to be really, really big in this one as well. How about the other one? And this is, excuse me, to me, like when you evaluate offensive coordinators, I like to look at yards after the catch, specifically from my pass catchers. Now, South Carolina has had some success with the tight ends after the catch, not with the wide receivers. Less than 100 yards after the catch from these wide receivers on the season. That's a problem. Like what problem does that stat highlight? It highlights that, hey, as Mike Shula, you're not doing a good enough job getting your wide receivers in space. And there's so many different ways you can do it. But the fact that they're under 100 total yards after the catch in the first 2 games, that's telling me we're not doing a good enough job scheming up ways to get our playmakers the football in space. That needs to get better. Like, if you're a South Carolina fan, Like, you've spent all fall and summer listening about these wide receivers and the talent we think we have in this room. And outside of Nick Harburn, some glimmers of Vandravius Jacobs and Don Murph, you haven't seen these wide receivers have a huge impact. You want to see it. As South Carolina rolls into the SEC, and we're talking about, hey, is this a team that can make the college football playoffs? These wide receivers have to have a bigger impact on this offense. And I think it starts with Mike Shula giving LaNorris Sellers some easier throws to just get the ball out in space and let our playmakers go make plays. X factors. I got two of them. One, and they're both on defense. Number one is Clayton White, right? And I think we have to start talking about Clayton White as one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. Phenomenal job last year. I would argue even more impressive in terms of what he's doing this year. Dialing up the defense, developing these young linebackers. He's going to have to be really good this whole week in game prep. This is one of the more tricky offenses to prep for in a week. There's a lot of eye discipline that will be tested. Having a really good defensive coordinator that produces disciplined defenses going to be really important for South Carolina. The other one, DQ Smith. Hey, who leads South Carolina in run stops on the year? It's DQ Smith from the safety spot. He's always been good at coming down into the box and fitting the run. He's going to be asked to do it a lot. In fact, I would guess that when we look up at a snap count chart at the end of this game, we're probably going to see DQ Smith in the tackle box a lot. With Diego Pavi and what he can do as a runner of the football, you have to account for that. You got to put another body in the box. Well, a good thing for South Carolina, you have a safety that not only is good at it, but he's more than willing to do it as well. DQ Smith coming up, fitting the run, going to be a really big under the radar X factor in this football game. Look, that's 12 minutes worth of, X's and O's talk and matchups that you like. It again, does not matter unless South Carolina goes out and executes specifically on offense. We'll sign it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.